Welcome to Latkes and Ketchup, the official podcast of Congregation Beth Israel in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm Ezra Leventhal, the assistant rabbi of CBI, and today I am here with a very special guest, Raya Cantor, our office manager. Hello, Raya.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing very well. You might recognize Raya's lovely voice greeting you if you've ever called CBI, because she is the person who would be picking up the phone. I think Rabbi Tom said in the annual meeting this week that you are everyone's favorite voice to hear on the phone.
I think he did say that. That was so nice.
So nice of him.
Very sweet.
Do you feel like you're particularly renowned for your phone skills?
Sure, I guess.
Why not? At this point, claim it.
I like talking on the phone.
You're an
Is that
expert.
Something? Yeah.
Yeah. You've been training for this your whole life.
Exactly.
Well, what you've actually been training for, what some people might not know about you, is you have a master's degree in Jewish communal studies from Gratz College, and you used to host your own Jewish podcast.
It's true. Yes. Many, many years ago. Probably, I know it was before my now 19-year-old was even a glimmer in our eye. So like probably over 20 years ago,
Wow.
My ex-husband and I had a podcast called There Are Jews in Alabama.
And there are?
There are. Well, there's not as many anymore because we don't live there anymore. So there's
Two
two
less
less.
Jews.
But we got this a lot when we were going to be moving there from Philadelphia, because we were in Philadelphia for me to go to Gratz. And then we were moving to what people acted like was this godforsaken place, like Birmingham. Oh, are there Jews there? And yes, there are 3 synagogues there.
Wow.
And Chabad and Hillel for the university and a vibrant Jewish community. So
That's more synagogues than Charlottesville has.
Exactly. So yeah, and a JCC, which is where I worked most of the time we lived there. So yeah, so we were trying to kind of refute that idea that there were not Jews
Very
in
nice.
the Bible Belt. Yeah.
So what did you talk about on There Are Jews in Alabama?
I mean, ostensibly that was sort of the topic, was sort of, being Jewish in a very Christian place, a Bible Belt kind of place. But then honestly, whatever, popped into our heads or was going on in our lives, that day. So it got a little bit off topic. We had a couple of guests, although the only one, or maybe only the one. I remember having my brother on for sure.
Oh,
we had my
cute.
brother on as a guest, and he and I were talking about that recently. But yeah, mostly it was just us talking. And then when Sophie was born, we continued for a little bit longer. And so she was a guest, making little baby sounds in the background. And then we got too busy being young parents and, stopped the podcast. But yeah.
Sophie,
But it was
perhaps
fun.
the youngest podcast co-host of all time.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah. Great claim to fame.
It was fun. Yeah. But this is fun because, it's been a very long time. So
Yeah.
I am honored to be asked to do this with you.
And I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you.
So I gotta ask, did you bring the latke or the ketchup?
I brought a latke.
Very good. Okay, so to give you a little bit of background, listeners, because Raya and I have synced up our stories, Raya told me that she wanted to share something that was really personally meaningful to her, something that really kind of buoyed her through hard times. And because I like to honor the vulnerability of personal sharing, I agreed to do the same. So Raya is bringing a latke that represents something that was meaningful to her in a hard time, and I am bringing some ketchup that was meaningful to me in a hard time. I never thought I would say that about ketchup,
Right.
that there would be ketchup that was meaningful to me in a hard time, but
Yep.
here we are on a podcast, and that is my stance.
That ketchup really got you through.
Of course, the tomatoes, the sweetness, what's not to love? Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
Tell us about your latke. What did you pick?
So my latke, it will be familiar to, I think, a lot of people. The song that we sang at Friday night services called Lecha Dodi. And I have always liked it as a song. Didn't really know too much about it. But when I was going through this particularly hard time that Rabbi Ezra just referenced a few years ago, there was a specific verse in this that I really found uplifting and just really made me feel better. And I even I had and still have. I created back in those days, several years ago, a note on my phone of sort of inspirational quotes and just things just to make my own self feel better. When I would open the note and, look at these on my phone, and some of them were silly from TV shows or song lyrics or whatever. And some of them were more meaningful liturgical things like this. It's a very odd mishmash of things. But anyway, this was one of my early things that I added to that note. And it, I would look back at it from time to time. And it was it was
must
very
say,
helpful to me. Yeah.
This is like a rabbi's dream of what somebody would do to support themselves in a hard time. This is,
Yeah.
you're literally turning to the liturgy to support you. Thank you. This will get me through hard times in the future.
I'm so glad I could do that for you.
Thank you, Raya. But let's go into Lecha Dodi a little bit. Can you tell us, for our listeners who might not know the depth of what they're saying when we say this on Friday nights,
right?
What's this song about? What does this prayer mean?
Right. So it's Lecha Dodi literally translates to "come" or "come out, my beloved." And then so it says Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nakabala is the beginning part. I guess kind of considered, because everything that I read talked about the verses and did not include that. So I guess that's sort of the chorus, if you will.
Yeah, that's the chorus.
So we kind of start with that, and then there's verses. And so it's telling us as a people, I guess, it's the way that we're supposed to be welcoming in Shabbat. So the bride, when it's saying, come, let's greet the bride, is the metaphor for Shabbat. And when we sing this song, Friday night services, we actually stand up and we turn and we face the door, literally like as if this beautiful bride is walking in the door.
And she's gorgeous every time.
She's gorgeous. She's the most gorgeous. Exactly. And we even bow, which we don't do a whole lot in our services. So I think that's kind of, an unusual thing too, that we actually bow when she's coming in. But so the verse that I found particularly meaningful, and like I said, I always just loved it as a song, but the one that really struck me, is, I think it's the 5th verse.
It is the 5th verse.
Yeah, the 5th verse. And so it says, Hitori, kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi, kavod Adonai alayich nigla. And I found, several different translations. The one in our Mishkan Tefillah Reform prayer book that we use here is, awake, awake, your light has come. Arise, shine, awake and sing. The Eternal's glory dawns upon you. And for some reason, and I know, depending on who's listening, if you were CBI people that have been with us, for a while, we were doing our services on Zoom for a long time. I know Lucas remembers that very well.
During the pandemic.
And doing
Ezra.
only Zoom. Yes, during the pandemic. Sorry. So in March of 2020, we started doing services on Zoom. And there was a while that we were only on Zoom. And then there was a while that we were doing the hybrid thing of, somebody was, some people were here, but everybody else was watching on Zoom. Or there was a variety of things happening. But for a while there, Lucas and I were basically sharing the duties of being the host of the, not leading the service, but being the Zoom host, for the tech stuff of doing those services. And so that honestly is probably the time in my life since my childhood that I've attended the most services. I mean, because I was hosting a lot of those services.
You had to.
So, right. So, of course, the pandemic was a terrible time for everyone in all kinds of different ways. But then I also had some other personal things that were going on a few years ago. And so it was especially a dark time, I would say, for me. And I can remember being home, on a Friday night by myself, in my house on Zoom, hosting these services and, not feeling the greatest and not, maybe not feeling exactly the Shabbat spirit all the time, but really feeling bad about what was going on in my life, regret, thinking about, the past, worry, thinking about the future, the whole gamut of how you might be down in the dumps.
Yeah.
And then, it would be time to sing Lecha Dodi, and everybody would stand up, and you could see the people that had their cameras on, people would actually stand up on Zoom, and I would too, and we would face our own individual doors, which were not in the same direction. And so people would be facing all different ways and, and welcome in the Shabbat bride. And it was such an uplifting, to use that word again, moment for me, and I think even though and we'll talk a little bit more maybe about the history of it, but, even though the idea was we were welcoming in the Shabbat and we were, greeting the Shabbat bride, just the words, if you sort of take them out of the context and just look at the words, it's, I felt like it was speaking to me as saying, wake up, get up, shake off the bad stuff, come out of the dark, and, that it's time for you to be in the light and time to kind of move on and get over that funk that you're in.
Yeah.
And so that's how I took it and still take it, so I still have that association with it when I hear it now.
That's gorgeous.
So,
I love that story. Yeah. And I mean, I feel like that's so relevant to the words of the song, even though, it may have been written with some different things in mind. The song itself is a reference to the Song of Songs, which is a Jewish text between two lovers. So when they say, "Go, my beloved, time to meet the bride," this is really in-depth referencing Song of Songs. And the bride here is this metaphorical, beautiful essence of, divine energy that we get to be in touch with only on Shabbat. My friends and I used to send each other selfies and just like happy selfies right before Shabbat and say, "My wife is coming home." That's an honor to this.
That's cute.
So I also have that kind of positive association, my heart with it. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like the history?
Yes, thank you.
You did research on this. I don't want to cut you short.
No, I did. Thank you. Because I mean, I don't know. It's like some of these things are maybe a little nerdy, but I think it's cool. So just about the person who composed it, because I don't think, I don't know about all the rest of you. Like, I don't know that much about who composed a lot of our prayers, and I don't think much about it. But I do think it's interesting how our service that now we consider, like, of course we sing this on Friday night, but that wasn't always the case, right? So this one was composed as a poem by Rabbi Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz, which is just a great name too. And he was a Kabbalist, a Jewish mystic, who lived in the 16th century. They think he was born around 1505 in the Ottoman city of Salonika, which apparently is now I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Thessaloniki, Greece, maybe. Our
editor is giving us the sign that it is correct.
I'm sorry, I don't speak Greek, but something like that. So it was Ottoman Empire, but now where it was is Greece, and then moved to Sfat in Israel, although, pre-Israel, not pre the state of Israel, but when he was around age 30, so that would have been around 1535. And he... and these other Jewish mystics would actually go out into the fields on Friday evening and literally welcome the Sabbath queen or the Sabbath bride. And that was based on apparently an even earlier, rabbis in the Talmud that would have this tradition too. So that's where that sort of imagery came from, I guess. And then I also found what I thought was an interesting midrash, where each day of creation is said to be sort of paired up. So there's 7 days if you include Shabbat. But so day 1 and 4 are both connected to light. Days 2 and 5 are related to water and the oceans. Days 3 and 6 are about earth and vegetation. But then that leaves out poor little Shabbat, lonely day 7 Shabbat with no partner. And so this midrash, this Jewish teaching, says that God promised Shabbat that it wouldn't be alone because the Jewish people would be the partner.
Oh, so and we love her so
Rabbi
much.
Ezra's making a little heart hands.
Go
ahead.
One of my favorite things about this teaching, first of all, I love that we as a peoplehood collectively have a wife.
Right.
Like we're all together married
It's a little weird.
to a day.
Yeah.
Then the weirder part, which I think is also fun, there's also metaphors about us being married to God, but in the marriage to God, God is the husband and we're the wife. So the gender of this dynamic is pretty flexible.
Right.
We're in a polyamorous, in so many ways, marriage because we're one entity.
Right.
Each married to 2 different entities. We have a husband and a wife.
Why not?
Who
wouldn't want that?
No,
actually, I would not.
This is a mystical marriage. It's fine. It can be whatever we want it to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So very cool. And then just another. This is the really nerdy part, I guess. No, but
don't disparage yourself. Own your nerdiness.
No, it's nerdy in a good way.
You're on a podcast. You're a nerd.
Exactly.
Own it.
No, just that Lecha Dodi is like. There are other songs like this too, considered an acrostic, which is that the first letter of each verse spells out something. Some of them are alphabetical, where it's like the first letter. I can't think of one off the top of my head that is, but anyway, where the first letter, it's like the first letter is an aleph, and then the next verse starts with a bet and whatever. But in this one, Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz put his own name into it. So when you skip that Lecha Dodi, then when you start with the first verse as actually being a verse, whatever that one is. I can't think off the top of my head. The Shamor, Shamor V'Zachor. So the shin of the Shamor and then the next verse starts with a lamed, and then the next verse starts with a mem, and then the next a hey. So that's your shlomo. And then you get to verse 5, my favorite. Starts with another hey for Halevi, and then the lamed, and then the vav, and then the yud. So you get his name. He just stuck his own like little signature into the poem, which I just think is kind of a fun thing to,
I love
to know about that. Yeah.
The like unabashed self-promotion of that move.
Right?
Like I could
Right.
never, but
You
he
wouldn't?
can, and he owns it.
You could.
I could, but would I? If you discovered that in one of my sermons I had started the
my
first
gosh.
letter of each sentence
Yeah,
to
yeah.
spell out Ezra
By- or
Leventhal,
Ezra, yeah.
I could never live that down.
I would be excited if I saw you did that, but maybe that's just me.
All right, Raya's here for it. Raya's here
Yeah.
for my era of
Yeah, yeah.
shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
Not that I think that would really help me in the world.
Yeah, well,
but
so speaking of promotion, no. So you want one more little? No, you want one more little fun fact. And
I
then It's
do.
going to be a plug for a CBI thing.
Oh.
So apparently, and I only just found this out in the last couple of days when I was researching all this, Shlomo Halevi and some of these other Kabbalists were the first to have a Tikkun Leil Shavuot, which is an Erev, the evening leading into the holiday of Shavuot. Like study session, basically, right? Like an all-night study session. So at CBI, we're having this on Sunday night. It's not going to be all night, but we're having a nighttime event on Sunday night that Rabbi Tom is leading.
and I believe that's Sunday, May 31st.
Yes, it is.
Do I have my date?
No, June 1st.
Sunday, June
I don't know.
1st.
What's today? Yes.
And I believe that's
Yes.
Sunday, June 1st at 7 p.m.
Yes, that is
Sunday,
correct.
June 1st at 7 p.m.
Yes.
That is when our tikkun, and there will be cheesecake there.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I forgot about the cheesecake.
We should never forget about the
No,
cheesecake.
I don't know if back in the 16th century they had cheesecake, but maybe.
I don't know when the tradition of eating dairy for Shavuot started
Right.
off the top of my head.
I
It's not
don't
something I pay a
either.
lot of attention to as a person who violently cannot eat dairy.
Right.
I have to make myself a little tofu cheesecake every year, but
okay.
cheesecake is so good I do it anyway.
Yeah.
I don't remember what real cheesecake tastes like.
All right,
The
well
lie is
then-
good enough for me
Right.
now.
Exactly.
All right, Raya,
Right?
would you like
Yes?
some ketchup to go with your latke?
If we were actually eating latkes, no.
That is a really good point that you
But
make.
metaphorical ketchup to go with the metaphorical latke, yes.
Will you
please.
accept my
Yes,
metaphorical
yes.
ketchup?
And to be clear, it's not because I think it's wrong in any sort. I just don't like
you.
ketchup personally.
That's okay.
It's not like a Jewish thing that I don't think ketchup belongs with latkes. It's just a me thing that I don't like ketchup. So
I'm a very tolerant person, and I accept that you don't like
yeah,
ketchup.
it's just a food thing. Yeah.
Even though I do think
Thank you.
objectively it's a
Yeah.
very well-balanced condiment, like from a culinary
I know.
perspective.
Yeah.
I have a friend who argues that Heinz ketchup is like the most perfectly balanced, like salt, fat, acid, heat.
Okay.
Heat? Really? I don't know. Maybe just salt,
know.
fat, acid, whatever.
Yeah.
I
know-
don't need to pitch ketchup.
No, but I know mine is an unpopular opinion, and that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine to be wrong sometimes.
But yes, in this sense, I very much want to hear your ketchup, please.
Thank you. All right. So the ketchup that I am bringing today, the ketchup that is meaningful to me, that carries me through hard times, is the Disney film Moana from 2016.
Excellent.
I'm going to go into specifically one song in Moana that really kind of gets me. But just in case you haven't seen Moana, which actually Raya has not seen Moana.
It's true. I have not.
I'm
sorry.
I did make her listen to one song in preparation to do this podcast.
Yes.
But I think that you can appreciate this story even if you haven't seen Moana.
Okay.
So the basics of the story Moana, there's this girl, shockingly named Moana, who is living in a Polynesian island called Motunui. It's not a real island. It's a pretend one.
Right.
Like thousands of years ago. And she is being raised by her parents. Her dad is the chief of the island. She's being groomed to be the next chief of the island. But she has this secret desire in her house, in her heart. She keeps it in her heart, not her house.
No.
It's not safe there. It's in her heart. In her heart to go out and voyage into the sea. And everyone tells her, no, don't do that. We don't go out into the sea. we stay right where we are. But then her grandmother reveals to her that there was this prophecy that she was like this chosen one that was supposed to go out and voyage and bring back the heart of the goddess that they worship.
Oh my gosh.
And so she goes out on this quest to go get the heart of the goddess, and she goes off into the sea where she was not supposed to go. And she has this kind of repeated refrain. She talks about the sea calling her over and over again. And that concept of a calling is something that really hit home for me. I'm going to give you my little dark backstory. So back in 2017, I was not having the best time. I was 2 years out of college. And if you're out there, if you've recently finished college and you're having a bad time, it's not just you. It's a really hard time. And not enough people say that. Right after you graduate from college, if you go to college, it's a hard adjustment.
Yeah.
So I was working at an insurance agency, which is already a bad start for me personally, at least.
Right.
If you work at an insurance agency, your insurance agency specifically is so much better than the one that I was working at, and your job is great, but the one that I had personally was not a good time for me.
Yeah.
So I was going to work every day and just feeling really drained by everything that I did, and I was trying to get jobs in Jewish life, and I knew that's where I wanted to end up. I had these dreams of going to rabbinical school, but I wasn't getting work in the Jewish world, and I was really down about it, and I just had no energy at the end of the day, and I was really starting to doubt, like, can I make this happen? Am I worthy of making this happen? Am I supposed to be doing this thing that I think is the right path for me? And this one day, I end up at the gym. I remember it was on the elliptical. I was at the gym by myself. Sad times. And I was watching Moana on my phone. And I got to it's a song towards the end of the movie. And Moana's grandmother, spoilers, dies close to the beginning of the movie.
Oh, no.
After telling her that she's this like chosen one to go get the heart for the goddess. And then her grandmother's ghost comes and visits her.
Ooh.
And she tells her about who she knows Moana is inside. And Moana starts to feel so inspired. And she says, and the call isn't out there at all. It's inside me. Like the tide always falling and rising. I will carry you here in my heart. You remind me, come what may, I know the way.
Oh.
And I started sobbing at the gym. Oh no, I am a shameless public crier. This is a fact about me.
Yeah.
I feel that if my emotions have come up in that way, if other people are bothered by it, that is their problem. I will be crying.
I like that.
Yeah. If someone's crying in public, mind your own business. It's not about you.
Yeah.
Unless it is about you.
Well,
and then
right.
you should look at
Sometimes
your choices. But if somebody's crying in public and it's not about you, let them be. Let them.
Yeah.
So I started sobbing at the gym, and literally the next day I put in my 2 weeks notice to quit my job. So I didn't have anything lined up. I was like, well, in 2 weeks I will have no source of income and no health insurance.
Wow.
This is a choice. And then 2 weeks after I finished my job, I finished my time there. So 4 weeks after I put in my notice.
Yeah.
I got my first part-time job working at a synagogue. And then I got another part-time job, and I was able to piece together, I think, like 4 part-time jobs.
Yeah.
That was enough for me to make a living in the San Francisco Bay Area where I'm from.
Amazing. Right, which can't be a cheap place to live.
No, deeply not a cheap place to live.
Right.
And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so Moana, I frequently credit Moana with inspiring me to have the guts to go on this journey that eventually led me to being a rabbi.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you. I like to think so.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a touchstone film for me. So whenever I get sad or down on myself, I use the message of Moana to kind of remind me that I know who I am. I know where I'm going, even if the rest of the world doesn't see my vision.
Yeah.
And there are things that I have inside myself that I can bring out and use to strengthen.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So that's my little Ketchup moment.
Yeah.
And I think an interesting thing about these two is that at the core of them is an imaginary person.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
in Lecha Dodi, we are calling out to this metaphorical bride. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've known this about the Jews, but not always the easiest time to be a Jew. Many times have not been the easiest time to be a Jew. And yet we have this collective metaphor that we touch on every week, that we are greeting this beautiful, glorious bride. Mm-hmm. Our wife is coming home to us.
Yeah.
She is here, and we are happy just to be with her.
Yeah.
And that is enough to kind of keep us afloat. And Moana needed to reach for this imaginary person, this ghost of her grandmother, this kind of imagined past that she has, this tie to her ancestry, to keep herself strong. And I think that that's kind of a beautiful tie between these two.
It is.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah. Anything come up for you between hearing kind of my story about Moana and...
Well, just that, because not that Lecha Dodi, I don't think, touches on this, although maybe it does, but, about how much connection we Jews have to the past and to our ancestors, and, saying the Kaddish every, at services, the mourner's Kaddish, I mean. And remembering people on their yahrzeit on the anniversary of their death. And so, the fact that in Moana, it's her deceased grandmother that's this inspiration is kind of Jewish too,
Yeah, it does have an interesting sort of tie between how we look at lineage and ancestry between these two. One of the interesting things about Moana as well, the island that they live on, I'm going to back up even further, actually.
Okay.
In the inspiration for Moana. The two writers of Moana, Ron Clements and John Musker, were doing research on the various Polynesian islands to kind of get an inspiration. They knew they kind of wanted to do a mishmash of different histories and different mythologies to create one thing without, pulling too directly on any particular people. And they discovered that for a really long time, the people of Polynesia were long-distance voyagers. They would go in these boats. So years before there were European explorers, there were explorers from this part of the world, and they had their own directional system, and they had really advanced technology. And then abruptly, about 3,000 years ago, they just stopped making voyages. And scholars still aren't quite sure why that happened. There are some theories about climate change or various geographical factors keeping them in one place.
Yeah.
But they wanted to write a story from the perspective of this moment where they weren't voyaging. So Moana, as a part of her journey, discovers that her people used to be voyagers. And in Polynesian history, about 1,000 years after they stopped voyaging, they started voyaging again. So this is kind of that turning point of going back to the voyaging. And I think that one of the ways that I see people connect to Judaism very frequently, there are, myself included, there are a lot of people who their families have kind of fallen out of the practice of Judaism, haven't been connecting to Judaism, and then they get to look back and see this history that they can connect with. I think for queer people especially, we don't always have the greatest relationships with our immediate family, but we can look to things like Lecha Dodi, we can look to our liturgy, we can see ourselves in the spirituality and have this kind of imagined sense of expansive ancestry and family that we can connect with. Which is such a beautiful thing.
I love that.
Yeah. I love the way that we can, even if maybe the person next to us isn't somebody that feels supportive, somebody in history can be. We can have something in common across time.
Nice.
Really sweet.
Beautiful.
Thank you. I'm glad that you found my story of crying in the gym beautiful.
Well, yeah.
I see.
I'm also a crier, so,
Excellent. I'm so glad we can both connect on crying about about hardships. What else can you connect on, really? All right. Well, since we did have our moment of disconnect over what should go on a latke, I've got to know, Raya. What do you put on your latkes?
I forgot that I've listened to all these and I still forgot that I was going to be asked that. Usually applesauce. I am kind of traditional. I mean, applesauce and sour cream, I guess, are the two probably most traditional. And I'll do a sour cream. Usually applesauce, though, I have to say, or nothing. I don't think it really needs anything.
Are you like a Mott's applesauce, like a Safeway like a grocery store applesauce?
I will, but I usually make it. So my sort of concession, I usually don't make the latkes, although I have, but it's a pain. And I don't think I'm that good at it. I don't think they come out that good when I like when other people make them fresh. But so usually lately I have done the Trader Joe's frozen.
Those are good.
Potato pancake latkes.
No shame.
They're not bad. And I don't fry them. I do them, in the oven. And so they're even a little healthier, even though I know you're supposed to do the oil. That's kind of the point, whatever. But I will make the applesauce.
Yeah.
So I'll do the frozen latke, but the homemade applesauce.
I gotta say, homemade applesauce. It's a game changer.
It's just so easy.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's nothing like really the Mott's jar stuff. No. It's a totally different thing. So, yeah.
Why I clarified.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thank you.
I didn't have homemade applesauce until a couple years ago.
Oh,
and
so
I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Raya.
Thank you.
Glad that we could get you on the podcast and hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah.
And
I want to watch Moana now.
You got to watch Moana.
Yeah.
You got to go cry about Moana.
I'm going to.
Oh, good. Yeah. Send me a selfie of you crying just to prove it. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Latkes and Ketchup. I am Rabbi Ezra Leventhal, and I'm going to dip.